on this episode of Jeff Does Vegas.
I debated for a while, like if I wanted to write it or post it. I felt like I needed to say something, and I was just kind of like, I don't want to be a downer. I don't want to open myself to the trolls of the internet, hitting me while I'm vulnerable. But I was just like, you know what, fuck it. It needs to be said. It's the truth. So I typed that with my thumbs on the plane. That was about 2 hours worth of, pecking away. And I posted it before I left the airport when I landed in Colorado Springs.
Las Vegas. It's more than just a city. It's a feeling. It's that feeling of excitement when you spot the lights of the strip out the airplane window. It's that feeling of awe as you stroll down the boulevard, taking in the sights and sounds. And it's that feeling of satisfaction, knowing that you're in the greatest city in the world. Over 42 million people from around the world share that feeling every year. And I'm one of them. Taking you to the world-famous Vegas Strip and beyond, my name is Jeff. And this is Jeff Does Vegas. Joining me this time around on the podcast is one of my favorite Vegas content creators, Sergio Portizan. Sergio is the brains behind vivalasvalue.com, an incredible website all about how to do Vegas like a high roller on a low roller's budget. Last time I had Sergio on the show was a little over 3 years ago. It was shortly after Vegas had reopened following the big COVID-19 shutdown. At the time, I was unable to go to Vegas due to the various travel restrictions that were in place, so I asked him to do a trip report by proxy to talk about his Las Vegas experience. It's now been almost 6 months since my last trip to the city, but Sergio just wrapped up a visit within the last few weeks, so I thought it might be fun to have him back to do it again. Sergio shared his hotel experience staying both on the Strip and downtown. We talked about what it's like attending a bachelor party with a bunch of Vegas virgins, and we discussed some of the same challenges that Sergio ran into on this trip that everyone else seems to be experiencing in Las Vegas, including a perceived decrease in value and increase in costs. We also got a little bit serious during our discussion as Sergio shared the epiphany that he had during this trip and the blog post he wrote about it that's gathered a lot of attention. Please enjoy my conversation with Sergio Portizan of vivalasvalue.com.
So it was for my cousin's bachelor party. They flew in from Minnesota. I came out from Colorado. We met up in Vegas. We did 2 nights at the Flamingo. And then we went to Utah, actually. We went to Zion National Park, which was absolutely gorgeous. Can't recommend it enough. It was my first time there. Won't be my last. And then I tacked on a solo day and night downtown at Four Queens before coming back on Monday.
And so doing the bachelor party, I know in watching some of your tweets or X's or whatever the hell we're supposed to call it now, you had mentioned that for a lot of the people that were on this trip, or a few of the people on this trip, it was their first time going to Vegas. So tell me the experience of A, doing a bachelor party in Las Vegas, and B, doing it with a bunch of first timers. I would imagine it's kind of, I think in your tweets, you actually described it as herding cats.
Yeah, that was very accurate. I will say for anyone listening right off the bat, it's not what you necessarily expect for like a bachelor party of 9 guys in Vegas. My cousin and his friends and myself were all pretty low key in that regard. So no strip clubs. It was a running joke, but it was never seriously entertained. The big highlight was we went to Omega Mart, which was pretty fun. Everyone got a kick out of that, and then just kind of walked around. I would say the majority of the group time was seriously just spent arbitrarily walking around and then stopping and standing in the middle of the sidewalk trying to decide what to do next, punctuated by me and the other degenerate in the group putting a 20 into a slot machine because we got impatient, and sometimes we'd feed off of each other. But it was pretty interesting. I think my cousin had been once before last year. For about 2/3 of the group, it was their first time. Not any huge gamblers, so it wasn't as degenerate as it would have been if it were me planning it. Of course, I found my degeneracy anyways, but yeah, my cousin's vegan, which was also interesting. So Taco Bell is actually really good for vegans. Very customizable menu, pretty cheap. So we went to the cantina, I think 2 separate occasions, or they ended up there. Um, but yeah, like not a whole lot to write home about. We did go downtown for maybe 2 or 3 hours, and then the groom got too drunk and we had to go back. Um, kind of there's that meme that goes around and it pops up from time to time that's like Vegas isn't ready for us, says the 35-year-old guy that's going to have two Bud Lights at the club, lose $20 at video blackjack, and go to bed. That's kind of what it felt like. We did get the sights at Omega Mart, but just they'd be like, let's go to Excalibur. No reason why, no anything. So, just sightseeing and going through the conservatory and things like that were pretty fun. And one of the guys discovered the 350 foot longs at Casino Royale, and we were giving him shit because I think he ate 5 of them. We were like, if you would have ate one more, you could have ate your height in hot dogs. What were you doing?
That would garner a t-shirt. I'm pretty sure. I ate my height in hot dogs t-shirt.
I think the Casino Royale needs to do that. We're onto something. That their little VIP club or whatever they call it on Twitter. Get us involved.
I love that you guys did the classic, as you say, the stand around in the middle of the sidewalk and try to decide where to go. I remember doing it was either my classic Vegas mistakes episode or my Guys Gone Vegas episode, where I David DeMontmolin on and had a conversation with him. And I think when we talked about the planning the guys trip or planning the bachelor party, that was one of the things that came up, was the go in with a plan, always have a plan, have an idea of what you want to do. Otherwise, yeah, you're going to spend all that time standing in the middle of the sidewalk going, well, where do we go? What do we do? Let's go to the Excalibur. Why? Why not?
The thing that was very fortunate for me was like, having been, I didn't feel the need to do anything. So I was just committed to going with the flow, and I didn't want to step on any toes of the best man or anything. So I just went along with it, gave advice when necessary. I shepherded them to Omega Mart just because I wanted them to have time and not run out, because at the rate we were going, I don't think we would have made it before it closed if we didn't intervene there.
Let's talk about the hotels, because you mentioned staying at the Flamingo, affectionately known by so many people as the Dirty Bird. I've stayed at the Flamingo a million times. It's always kind of been one of my go-tos in Vegas, bouncing between the Flamingo and Bally's or Horseshoe now. How was your stay at the Flamingo? Was it an okay stay? Was it decent? What was your overall experience at the Flamingo like?
As the saying goes, you get what you pay for. I was on a comped room where I just had to pay the resort fee, which I guess I don't know that I really got a resort out of it, so maybe not. It was, just before I dive in, as my handle Viva Las Values suggests, I am a cheap motherfucker. I do not have high standards. I need to walk into that room, be able to like shower and sleep and leave the room feeling cleaner and slightly more rested than when I walked in. That is my standard. And, Flamingo was the first hotel I stayed at the day after I turned 21. It always has a special place in my heart. So I'm not one of the people who just shits on a hotel, and like finds everything wrong with something. Have plenty of experience, and the only place I won't stay comp is Golden Gate because those walls are paper thin. But so I had a room. I did a 2 queen just in case I ended up needing it, but it ended up being just me, which was great. Went up and opened the door, and it was like more humid than Florida, and it smelled like a dispensary. Like it was so weed heavy. Coming from Colorado, I'm used to it, and it was just this stale, gross weed. And I am never one to complain. Being from the Midwest, very conflict avoidant. Last thing I want to do is have to, assert myself and say this isn't okay. But I went down to the front because I'm like, I'm not getting charged for this. I paid for a non-smoking. I don't want to be in this for 2 days and have my clothes and stuff smell like it. And of course, with all of their self-checking kiosks, there's like no people to talk to. So I had to wait for like the one person to become available. And he was just not having it. I'm normally pretty chatty. I'm like, hey, I'm in a good mood. I just got to Vegas. This is, time out of the casino. I hadn't made any gambles yet. I'm like, possibilities are endless. Getting me set up, maybe this guy will, hook me up with something. It's a Thursday night. I'm checking out Friday, or a Wednesday night checking out Friday. He was just might as well have been one of those kiosks for how much emotion he showed. I was just like, I'm gonna stop talking because you don't care at all, and I don't want to impose on you. So he got me the new room, and it was fine. Had a cool lamp. That was the highlight. I posted a picture on Twitter because I thought it was cool. Just a little like, kind of white flamingo, little modern style, but you know, room was totally fine. It didn't have shampoo in the little wall mounted dispenser since apparently people were using too much of the shampoo otherwise, but I didn't care enough to call down. Like, it was just like, man. It has one of those half door showers with no curtain, which is a pet peeve of mine. I don't know who the hell thought that was a good idea. Do they get kickbacks from like a flooding repair company? Because it's just the dumbest thing. But they had those. Nice, well lit, bright bathroom. Had a decent view of. It's kind of over. I guess they did get upgraded to a strip view, but half of it was the flamingo roof. But I could see Caesars and a bit of Bellagio if I really took an angle. Room was quiet enough, slept fine, showered. So by all accounts, it was fine. If you are a more detail oriented person, the carpet on both floors in the hallway was disgusting and like wrinkled, and like I felt like you would like catch a vacuum on all of the wrinkles, which probably explains why it was so dingy and gray, because it's showing its age pretty bad. And this is hilarious. I'm glad I get the chance to share it. One of the guys in the party got he texts us all. He's like, "Hey guys, I got a suite somehow." So we all go up, and it was like the footprint of like 3 or 4 rooms, and it was the most inefficiently laid out suite you can imagine. And the furnishing in it was the most hodgepodge mix of like old reject furniture from like 3 different eras. We looked it up online, and I think it was like last renovated in like 2004, six, like the 2000 singles is when this place was brought up. And I mean, it just had the ugliest lamps. We were cracking up just going around and like roasting the room. It had like a wet bar with no bottles, no mini bottles, no anything. The guy in the room was like, I would pay like $12 to have a beer like in my suite, and they don't even have it. Didn't have a
Yeah.
bottle opener, and the little credenza by the door, you could tell someone just popped a 6 pack on it because there were like 6 bottle marks in a row on it from the caps. And it had a pool table in it, but of course, in true Caesars Entertainment fashion, all of the balls went into the top left corner because the thing was slanted. And it was just, all of the stuff the haters of the flamingo talk about were on display in that room. I mean, some of that furniture is probably older than me, and it just was like, thank God he got it for, free. Because I think if I got that comp from Caesars, I'd be so insulted. I'd be like, I'm never coming back here. MGM, even with their hack, I'll go to them. It was just comedic. This was the funniest. It had like 8 different chairs in like different settings. Like there was like a high top, like a dining table, like these just 2 like chairs in the room. Like it was the most convoluted layout, not functional at all.
Is he sure he got a suite, or did he get a storage room?
You
Because
know,
it sounds like they took all the furniture from rooms that they've renovated. We got to put this somewhere. Let's put it in a room and we'll call it a suite and see what happens.
if there would have been more in there, but it somehow, despite all of that, still felt like empty and like all of this blank space.
Now you know me, I'm not a downtown stayer at all. All my trips to Vegas, I've never stayed downtown. You stay a lot downtown. How was it? Was it again, I've never stayed. What's the Four Queens like?
Honestly, Four Queens is exactly what you would expect if you've been in that casino. There's nothing great to say about it. There's nothing bad to say about it. It's just, it's a dated late 80s hotel. Brings you back a little bit of nostalgia to like a family road trip. It's dated. It's pretty poorly lit. Completely serviceable. Bathroom fixtures definitely showing their age, but still functional. Beds are definitely on the smaller side. Like hotel queens and kings are always, really like a step down, but they're definitely kind of aged mattresses. I'm not too picky. Actually had one of the best nights of sleep I've had in my life in Vegas there. So no complaints there. AC got nice and cold. I will say, for noise sensitive people, the Fremont Street experience can get quite loud with the boom, 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 boom bass. So I was pretty much right above the check-in desk, like in that back elevator, not the front. I forget
Mhm.
what street it is, but if you're noise sensitive or like, coming from the East Coast and a earlier to bed person, it's definitely worth asking for one removed from the strip. That goes for any hotel downtown, but especially for Queens. I've been in ones closer to the strip there and or to the Fremont Street. And they are pretty thin windows and it comes through pretty loud. If you want a elevated balcony view of Fremont Street experience, they're pretty fun, but depending on your needs as a night owl and, someone who's usually up gambling past 2 a.m., it's not a problem for me, but that's a big tip. And one gripe I do have, and this is kind of just me being cheap and wanting to leave my bags there, but the bell desk definitely has an attitude if you try to check your bags. Like in the past, I would just drop them and gamble, and now they're like, "Are you checking in or out?" And he actually made me go get a printed confirmation of my stay to give him to show him that I was staying before he would accept the bags. And I get that they probably, being downtown, need to be aware of riffraff and stuff, but it's kind of a buzzkill when you're going to check in. You're excited to be downtown, get your gamble on, and you have to wait in line again.
I guess I do kind of understand it, because I know for the longest time there was, you'd see people on different Facebook groups and stuff that I was a member of, and people would ask about storing their bags if they get in early or they have late flights or whatever. And people would always say, "Oh, just take it to any hotel and they'll take them at any bell desk. You don't have to put it at your own hotel." And I would imagine that probably people are leaving it out of convenience, or they're deciding, it's because you always see those people wandering around, whether it's downtown or on the strip, and they're dragging their entire lives behind them because, yeah, they've arrived early or they've got that late checkout. And rather than going and using a bell desk at the hotel that they're staying at, they're dragging their stuff around. So I would imagine they probably get to that point where they think to themselves, "Well, shit, I don't want to drag this stuff around anymore. Let me just duck into the Four Queens and I'll leave my stuff here until I come back and get it." So I kind of get that they want to use it for their guests, but at the same time, as you say, it's a bit of a pain in the ass to have to stand in line to get the confirmation of your check-in, and then, yeah, again, then go stand in line again at the bell desk, and then tip them for the privilege of standing in line at the bell desk and at the check-in desk.
They were friendly enough afterwards, but it's just kind of frustrating. I can say I did walk around downtown once because I flew in and I wanted to go downtown to gamble before going to my room on the strip, so it didn't make sense to go strip downtown back to strip. And the only place I went to, Plaza, Four Queens, Binions. Binions doesn't have a bell desk. You have to go to Four Queens, and then they told me no. So that was frustrating. They're already on my shit list for that. But I tried it quite a few places. I might have tried it at the D. I don't remember, but the Plaza did take it with no tip downtown, or with no room. So, and the guy there
Right.
was very friendly. Of course, I tipped well. So,
Mhm.
if you do have any listeners looking to get a little Fremont on, Plaza was good for me. Hopefully, that's a trend and not a data point, but that is what I've learned. Definitely don't waste your time at Four Queens.
Other than Taco Bell for your vegan cousin, did you guys do any eating anywhere? I know it's tough when you got a big group of guys like that. I know I've done the guys trip. Nobody's going out and sitting down for a big steak dinner or anything like that, or anything fancy. You're not there to, hang out per se and spend a lot of money on food. But did you guys get your eat on anywhere at any restaurants?
I felt bad because the whole group did end up going to Din Tai Fung. I didn't realize that everyone was going to go, so I was like, I'll just meet you guys after. I had some comps at Cosmo. And then, of course, they send a picture with literally everyone there, and I felt kind of like an asshole, but it was okay. I got District Donuts, which are a favorite of mine. I mean, I've never had anything bad there. It's a pretty good
No.
deal by strip prices. I mean, a donut under $5, can't be mad about that. And
Mhm.
I think I got a fried chicken sandwich there that was really good. It
Mhm.
was my first time getting that and really enjoyed it. And then I went to Bang or Bong Bar at the Block 16 as well. Got a U wrap and I splurged. I got the yuzu lemonade, which is kind of like a verbena in lemonade form. Gives you a little bit of tongue tingle. Really enjoy that. Make a point to get it if I'm at all in the mood. And then I got I believe it was called rice cakes, and it was really kind of like a gnocchi type thing. They were pretty, thick and satisfying, and kind of like a garlicky cream, maybe some cheese. I don't know. It was really rich. It was delicious. So I think it ended up being like a $28 combo or something with all of the upcharges, but I was not upset at all because it was comps that I'm trying to use before MGM fully takes over, and it was nice and delicious. It was disappointing though. They used to have kind of a grandfathered in Wicked Spoon buffet credit if you were, I think, Sterling or above, where you could get $15 at whatever restaurant you wanted if you went to the Players Club, but that is no more. The lady had a bit of attitude when she told me that they hadn't been doing it for a couple months, even though I'm pretty sure I did it the last trip I was there, which was within that time frame.
It really, though, in the grand scheme of things too, though, I mean, $28 for it's, I mean, you've got a decent amount of food there. $28, and we'll have a conversation about value and prices here in a bit, but $28 in the grand scheme of things for that amount of food on the strip at the Cosmo is really not all that bad.
Yeah. And I will say too, it's very fast. I think they call it like good food fast or some kitschy phrase like that. And I mean, from order to eat, it was less than 5 minutes. And that's including not standing in line because there wasn't one. In Vegas, where I think time is at a premium, I do place a value on that. So I think, in the big picture, there is a lot of value to be had in that food court just because it moves so quickly. You're not sitting down, doing the pleasantries, waiting for water to come, waiting to get your order, waiting for the bill, waiting for them to get it. Like, I was in and out in probably 15 minutes, and I really appreciate that. And In-N-Out was another stop I had. That was a good segue. Of course, they're a great value on the Link Promenade. It's a go-to late night for me because the late night options are definitely lacking still. I think that's one of the sad legacies of COVID. There's just not as much available. And as a degenerate who will sleep until noon and, get going gambling or doing whatever, I'm often hungry after 11. And it's rough when the only option is to eat your Haydn footlongs.
That's a really good segue into what I want to chat with you about next is, my last experience in Las Vegas was back in May. I talked about it on my trip report episode. It was not really an awesome experience based on kind of what I ran into. Recently had Sam Novak on the podcast doing the what the hell has happened to Vegas episode and having a conversation about everything going on in Las Vegas right now. And that was one of the things that came up was that lack of eating options and drinking options, late night options that just aren't there anymore. I mean, it used to be, I know so many times stumbling back to my room at Bally's, half in the bag at 3 a.m. and walking past La Pizza in Paris and going, 2 giant slices of that pizza seems like a really good idea right now. But 3 hours later, when the acid reflux kicked in, it did not feel like such a good idea anymore. But that option, that's not there anymore. And all those late night restaurants aren't there anymore. And even to like casino bars now are closing at different times. When I was there back in March for a conference and we had an event at Dre's, and it was just a private event with iHeart. So it was 3 hours and shut her down. And then we all said, okay, let's go down to the bar in the lobby in the Cromwell. And the big bar in the lobby in the Cromwell closed at 11 o'clock. And we just kind of went like, what is happening in this city right now? So you did definitely find that there was issues with that.
Yeah. And that's a recurring problem I've had really since COVID. I think it's just the way my schedule tends to work in Vegas. I'll eat like kind of 2 meals a day there. Usually one kind of like at a normal person, lunchtime is like my first one. And then kind of whenever, really any time after 7, whenever I'm hungry, if I don't have a reservation. So solo trips, I definitely lose track of time. And it's, I'm normally sweating if In-N-Out is still open. It's either In-N-Out or Secret Pizza are kind of the 2 things on the Strip and downtown. I always end up eating my 80s comp down there, so I don't really have. Although I did struggle with late night downtown as well. It's just not as much. I mean, you end up at White Castle or Casino Royale, and they say nothing good ever happens after two, and that's definitely the case if that's the food you're imbibing.
Something that I did want to talk about as well with this is, I mean, I noticed a lot of things when I was there, and Sam and I talked about this during our episode. We talked about the construction and how difficult it was to get around. From what I'm seeing on Facebook and on Twitter, it seems like it's still ridiculous trying to get around anywhere.
Yeah, I'll say it didn't affect me as much. I always, fly in and then Uber. So I think if I had to drive, I would have a conniption anyways, even on a good day. The one time I drove in Vegas, it just wasn't very relaxing. And with all the closures and just all of that, it would be a mess. But, getting from the airport, I did feel like we took a different route than normal. It took a bit longer. It was Lyft, so I wasn't getting long hauled or anything. But it did take a bit longer to get to Flamingo. Didn't have any problem getting between downtown and the Strip. Granted, we were center Strip. I don't know how that would go if we were a little bit further south by most of the mess at Bellagio. Did notice the lack of trees, which was interesting. I am not as outraged as many people online about that, just because it was nice to have a lot more like walking space to go around. Of course, it promptly got filled in by more of those 360 selfie people and the Jehovah's Witnesses trying to save someone who probably can't be saved at this point and all of that. So, it did feel a little bit more spacious and less crowded, and truly more of an open air bazaar than it normally is.
Yeah, and seeing some of the photos now, because of course that is all, they've actually closed that space off to pedestrian traffic entirely, getting ready for Formula One coming up here in, I guess, middle of November, and with grandstands going in there and stuff. So, I mean, I'm conflicted on the whole thing. I'm a Formula One fan. I think that the race is going to be good for the city in that, it's going to bring a shit ton of money into the city. They're talking $1.5 billion. I did have a conversation with a sports economist who says usually you can take that decimal point and move it one spot to the left. So it's probably not going to be $1.5 billion, but it will be some significant cash coming in to the city for that. But at the same time, I get that the locals aren't happy about it. I get that anybody that's planned a trip right now with, would love to see the Bellagio fountains and actually get up close to them, or the Mirage volcano, which, I mean, it was going to go away anyways, but knowing that it's now shut down until the middle of December in preparation for Formula One, I get that that's frustrating for people. When I was there in May, seeing parts of the Strip that were torn up and them having to run traffic both directions on one side of Las Vegas Boulevard, and seeing the lineups at night and the amount of work that was going into it, I get the frustration, and I can see why the locals are pissed off about the whole thing. But again, as a Formula One fan, I'm really conflicted on it because I think it's going to look really cool on television, which is where I'll be watching it.
Yeah. Well, you couldn't pay me enough to be in that cluster. But I mean, I will say as a tourist, I tend to walk on the Strip. Like, I really only am ever Ubering airport to Strip to downtown airport, any combination of that. And it's really pretty minimally impacted on that. I mean, there's easy ways to cross the Strip to get to the highway, easy ways to, take the back way. So it really wasn't too bad for me. I was there during the marathon one year, and I was just trying to get from downtown to the Link. And I remember I just, we were probably 4 or 5 blocks away from the high roller. And I just said, I'll just get out here. Like, I hope you can get out of this mess, because it was going to take like 20 some minutes to go like 0.2 miles. So like, I know some people have mobility issues or, reasons that they need to actually use a rideshare, in which case it is very unfortunate. I think it will be a big headache, but like, if you're able-bodied and have the ability to just walk, like, do that. You're going to save money. You're going to save on surge. You're going to save on headache, finding the pickups, which some of them are still a mess, especially at Caesars properties. It's, I've never done like a strip to strip Uber. And I think as long as you avoid that, that mitigates most of the frustration. There's always a way, kind of to the Strip and from the Strip. It's just, gridlock on the Strip that is the biggest thing.
You kind of briefly touched on the customer service that you got at the Flamingo deal, trying to get your room changed. And I noticed on my trip back in May, I found that the customer service was bad generally all around. What was your experience dealing with staff at places? Was it generally overall good? Was it sort of indifferent? Did you have any good or bad experiences that really kind of stood out?
I would say overall either neutral or positive. The guy at the Flamingo was just, he wasn't rude or anything. He just wasn't particularly fun. I can normally chat people up. It's, having done a job where you're doing menial work on the computer, it's like a welcome distraction to just make some small talk while you click the same 17 buttons you have to click in the stupid system. But I can also pick up if he doesn't want to. So, he did the job. But I do got to give a shout out to the Players Club person at the D, because I brought my boarding pass in and it had been about 30 hours since I landed. And he's like, hey, it's supposed to be 24. We'll let it go this time. So it was nice that he hooked me up with my $50 a match play there. Poor guy had bet on the Lions, or someone who had lost, and he was pretty upset. No, I think he bet against the Lions. He was pretty furious. He'd lost his bet, so he was having a bad day. But he was still nice enough to make my day. And yeah, beyond that, I mean, the bell desk at the Four Queens when I picked up my bags was really friendly. But customer service, I tend to, unless they're just completely awful in like every way, I can look past a lot. Like, I figure if they're providing good service or they're friendly, I can generally, focus on the good. I didn't have any cases where I didn't get good service and they were unfriendly. So just kind of, went about it. I will say, other than the guy at the Players Club at the D, I didn't have any customer service that kind of made the trip. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just get someone who's like so great that you're like, wow, I'm tipping, 40%. You were incredible. Thank you so much. Didn't have any of those, but also wasn't really in a environment conducive to that as much.
Yeah, I found it feels like that wanting to strive to go the extra mile, it feels like that has slipped away a little bit in Vegas. And Sam and I talked about this a little bit, where we were saying, and I asked him, what's it going to take for this to sort of, for them to flip the switch and realize that, we're chasing away some of these repeat people like myself and people like you that make repeat visits to Vegas. Because I found after my last trip, I was like, yeah, this was okay, but it wasn't great. And I'm not in any big rush to go back anytime soon, which for me is weird, because usually I'm at the airport looking at my schedule, planning my next trip a couple of months out. And when Sam and I were chatting, and he had kind of said, well, it feels like they don't care about the big corporations, don't care about the people like us anymore. They want sports fans that are coming in for their one NFL game a year, that are going to drop a ton of money in the sports book, and they're going to go over to Allegiant. They're going to pay big money for Raiders tickets, and they're going to buy a lot of food and a lot of beer, and they're going to get a room for a few nights and do some stuff in town and then take off. Or young guys or young girls that are 21, 22 coming to town to go to the day clubs, the nightclubs, drop money on bottle service, drink hard, hang by the pool, and then they don't care if they never come back. And it kind of, it made sense. Did you sort of get that feeling as well?
Yeah, I think, yes, I did. I was trying to think of something more eloquent, but yeah, it's, I'm definitely not increasing the shareholders' bottom line, and the way that, things are going represent that. Like, I'm not going to be there for Formula One. I'm not going to pay $300 to watch the Vikings choke to the Raiders this year in December. I think it's, really for me, Vegas used to just really be like a value and a gambling destination for me, where like my gambling would unlock value and I would be able to have experiences that were, quite frankly, way outside of my price range, in normal life. Like, if I was in a normal city, not even, talking like New York, San Francisco, but like Des Moines or, Springfield.
Yeah.
I would never be in a 4 or 5 star hotel for the price that I was in, in Vegas. And I really appreciated that. I think the gambling offers have certainly kind of dried up with downtown. I can get the comp rooms, but you're still paying $45, $50 with resort fees.
Mm-hmm.
I think downtown still has a bit more of that kind of grind joint, earn your points, get a cafe meal at Magnolia's or whatnot. But it just as a whole does not feel like such a good value. I'm not sure if I've just gotten kind of complacent or, have been going so much that it's like, oh, I'm willing to consider paying for convenience, but it just feels like, kind of every time I go, some of those little value places I had, my little hidden gems are kind of, my $2.99 ATM at the beef jerky store downtown went away, and it just more and more feels like the prices are going up. And I think it's, really just kind of reflective. Like Vegas isn't immune from the inflation we're seeing everywhere. I see it at the grocery store too. My English muffins went from $1.29 to $1.39, $1.59, another $1.79. I think, it makes sense that it's not gonna, be beating inflation and have these insane post-recession values going on. But I think when you have limited vacation time, limited funds, it's less compelling of a deal. And I'm a bit more hard pressed to recommend to friends like, hey, if you go to Vegas, you can live like a high roller and not break the bank, which is of course my tagline. I feel like less and less confident doing that. And there's a lot more pitfalls that you need to avoid. Like, for example, MGM gift stores have this buy 2 beers, get a free shot. That shot ain't free. It's like $30 for 2 tall boys and your shot of Jack. Like, it's not a good deal. And being with the bachelor party was really interesting to watch because, they were willing to pay for that convenience, and most people are, which is why they do it. So I think, really us kind of frugal, savvy deal shoppers are kind of definitely not the market. I think they kind of begrudgingly tolerate us, but, there's less and less coupons. There's less and less American Casino Guide, Las Vegas Advisor, all of that. It's just more and more work to the point where it kind of feels like it is work rather than vacation to hunt it out. So I've still got my haunts. I've still got my kind of deals, but it's feeling more and more like any other city to me. I do think it is, it has a good stake as entertainment capital, and you can go. I went and saw Taylor Swift at Allegiant, which was amazing. I will go out for shows because I can get nonstops from Colorado, and you can get a cheap hotel. But, I think when you're looking at spending, if you were more lavish than me and you're going to fancy restaurants, like there's less and less of a case to go to Vegas if there's other destinations you want to check out. Maybe that's me talking after 30 trips and having a rough gambling session, but I think it's just, the newer things are more and more expensive, like the constant in Vegas being changed. Before there were still values, but I think, we saw a lot of happy hours disappear forever in COVID. New places opening up don't tend to have good deals. So it's really just kind of clinging on to the past rather than moving forward with the deals, for me, is kind of how it feels.
And I know inflation is a thing. Yes, obviously, I know there's a lot of people that are struggling with cost of living and inflation, but at the same time, I know like that Las Vegas cheap sheet just came out, and so the September 2023 edition of the Las Vegas cheap sheet, which is interesting to look at because it's got, there's 100 things on there of deals, and it lists everything from the slice of pizza at Secret Pizza at the Cosmo, to the beers at the Stage Door, to the King Cut Prime Rib at Ellis Island, and all these things. And I thought, geez, it would be interesting to go back and look at some of the older ones to see how much those prices have changed. Some of them are it feels like there's more than inflation there. So, I mean, even the Ellis Island King Cut Prime Rib, the first time I ever had that, I think I paid $12.99 for it. One of the older cheap sheets that I could find from, I think, July of 2019, it was $16.99. That quote unquote deal is now $26.99. It's gone up $10 in 3 years. That's a pretty significant price increase for that, to the point where $26.99 for prime rib is not really a deal anymore, even when you can go to
Yeah.
Siegel's 1941 at the El Cortez and get prime rib. I think theirs is 14 or 15.99 or something like that. So I mean, it feels like, again, the value is just not there. I know the trip that my wife and I did back in March, or that I did, was kind of half work or half conference, half vacation. The vacation portion of it was probably the most expensive Vegas trip I've ever had. Anywhere we ate on the strip, I mean, we went for breakfast at the Henry at the Cosmo, and it was a $60 breakfast. And I mean, it wasn't anything special. I had eggs Benedict. My wife had some kind of bacon and eggs breakfast thing. I think we got the donuts because we had to get the donuts, or the banana bread, one of those things. And then like a coffee was $6, and not any special coffee, like just a cup of straight up brewed coffee was $6. And so it really feels like the value is not there anymore.
Well, the sickening part is when you said $6 for coffee, I went, "Oh, that's not too bad for this trip." Like, I mean,
Right?
it's so wild. Nothing's immune. The hot dogs at Casino Royale, like I think they're up to $3.50. I don't know what they used to be. I think they were $1.99, then $2.49 or something. But I get that they're loss leaders, and I guess the bean counters have just decided that, oh, getting people through the doors at Ellis Island with a good deal on prime rib isn't getting us as much money as just charging full price for it. So it's a bummer to see. I mean, there's still the hidden gems, but it's less and less for sure. I will say downtown still, if you're getting some play in on those cards, those are probably the best deals. I mean, you can't walk through the Four Queens without finding a coupon for Magnolias, and that's very serviceable. Good breakfast, decent stuff, and you earn those comps pretty fast. But we went to me and one of the guys on Sunday before he caught his flight went to Whiskey Liquor Up at Binion's. It had no business being as expensive as it was. We got an appetizer sampler, and it was in the 20s. I want to say 22 or 24. It's pretty shitty. I mean, the barbecue sauce on the wings was just kind of coagulated and clumpy and gloppy, and the onion rings were super thick, like not a good breading to onion ratio. The chips were just smothered beyond belief in this seasoned salt that was just, and like paprika we were both like, these are inedible. So we left a lot of the sampler, uneaten, and it was, like I said, $22 or something, and it just was not anywhere. I would have been underwhelmed if I got that at a dive bar for $10.
Have you noticed, being a downtown guy and going downtown as much as you are, have you noticed more things starting to increase in price downtown? Like, have room rates started to go up overall? And you mentioned the expensive appetizer platter, but like overall downtown, are you seeing the prices starting to creep?
Yes and no. I think there's still kind of the steadfast places that remain a value, but I think as a whole, it's not immune from the inflationary forces, the bean counters, like, why not charge $15 for a beer if people will pay it? Room rate wise, the big place that I would stay downtown was the D Golden Gate with the comps. And since Circa came, I've noticed that I went from getting free rooms at Golden Gate and buy one get one at D to rack rate at D and buy one get one weeknights on at Circa. So I haven't been getting as good a deal there. I've never really broken with the Plaza because I can't get past that stench that they have. And Fremont and like all of the Boyd properties, they used to be a great one for me, and they just kind of fell off because they ruined their players club where you weren't even earning points until you had Sapphire. And so I haven't got offers from them. After what I lost at El Cortez, hopefully they'll be sending me free offers. Maybe it'll be a renaissance there, but the offers kind of dried up, but that's also, I was getting better offers on the strip and playing more there. So I can't necessarily point to the room rates and say, like, you guys are ripping us off, because my play did go down. But I used to feel like with like my micro rolling, I was able to get good offers, when I was on a shoestring college budget. I'm talking $100 a day gambling budget, they would hook it up, and I was, able to go quite a bit. And I haven't been getting offers like that in a while. All of the new stuff opening up is certainly pricey. But two places that are really good values downtown that I love. I really enjoy Pink Box Donuts at Plaza. They're all of the specialty ones are closer to $5, but a regular donut there I think is like $2.50 or $3. So those are delicious, and I've never been disappointed there. And then the Pizza Rock Happy Hour remains. It's a happy hour of Vegas past pre-COVID. Getting the Calitalia personal pizza for $8, meatballs are $6. You got a $14 meal there, and it is delicious. It is only weekdays from, I believe it's 3 to 6, 4 to 6 or something, but it's worth going there. That is always a must hit for me if I'm not using comps elsewhere, and you can use your Players Club points for M&D, which is nice.
Something I did want to talk about, not to bring the mood down or anything, but you wrote a post on your blog, on your website, called When the Fun Stops. And I think, first of all, I want to commend you for writing this, because I think what you wrote was really important, and what you put out there was important for people to read, because I think there's so much on social media. Everybody always posts look at this big bonus that I won, and look at this big $800 jackpot that I won, and without including the fact that they spent $1,500 to get that $800. And so you wrote this blog post basically laying it all out there. You put all your cards on the table about the gambling experience that you had on this trip, and even just over the last while, you're gambling at other non-Vegas places. When the fun stops, the fun had and has kind of stopped for you, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, first of all, for your kind words. It's, I debated for a while, like if I wanted to write it or post it. I felt like I needed to say something, and I was just kind of like, I don't want to be a downer. I don't want to open myself to the trolls of the internet, hitting me while I'm vulnerable. But I was just like, you know what, fuck it. It needs to be said. It's the truth. So I typed that with my thumbs on the plane. That was about 2 hours worth of, pecking away. And I posted it before I left the airport when I landed in Colorado Springs. I really didn't edit it. I just wanted to be raw and unfiltered. But I'm glad that I did it. I was pleasantly surprised that pretty much everyone was supportive. I think only one person got the block hammer after that, which is, a better ratio than you'd expect. But yeah, I think, it's important to remember. I lost sight of the fact that, gambling is entertainment. It is not a money-making thing unless you are a casino executive. They did not build Caesar's Palace from giving out money to chumps like me and you that are bitching that the ribeye is $26 now. That's not why the city got built. That's not why Formula One is going there. The thing that I kind of lost sight of was literally every game in the casino. If I play it long enough, I will leave with nothing, no matter how much I bring in. Obviously, you can hit variance, you can, win. That's the hope that keeps us going. But, I was just feeling completely and utterly defeated by the end of the trip, because I, like I said in the post, hit the ATM 3 times, just lost. I hit my $120 bonus. I was still down. I just kept digging, and I finally, it was a first for me where I'm like, I'm just going to put the damn shovel down. I can't get out of this. Like, I just got to walk away. So I had my lowest gambling day ever the final day. I walked down to the Arts District for the first time, which was a place I'd always wanted to check out, just kind of window shopped. I converted $10 of free play at the El Cortez into $8 of cash. I took that, threw it in Sigma Derby just for shits and giggles, because I love the ponies. That's, I was like, this isn't to win. This is just for fun. I was going to give the $1 blackjack at Downtown Grand a try in my final few hours just to kind of kill time for $20, but it was full. So I went to Pizza Rock, and then I was, I put a 20 in video poker at the airport. I ran it up to like 35. I said, if I hit double, I'll cash out. Ran it back to 20, and I just cashed it out, and then threw it in a Invaders from Moolah, because I love that game, and it's the new one that I'd been wanting to try. But, so that was like the lowest gambling day I've ever had in Vegas, and I fortunately won. So I booked a tiny, minute win the last day, but it at least kind of let me go home on a good note of like, okay, you quit with some money in your wallet, you have more. It might not be much. It's a drop in the bucket compared to what you lost, but at least my final gambling memory from Vegas this trip wasn't doing the dragon thing on Dragon Link at the airport with my remaining 7 cents and losing. But yeah, just on a deeper level, I have a pretty addictive personality. I wrote a post about drinking, a year back, and I noticed a lot of similarities there. And, I just want to be clear to anyone listening. This is all about me sharing my thing. I'm not like pointing fingers. I never want to be like that guy. We all know them and you just zone them out. But, for me, I noticed so many similarities to that where, I'd be like, oh, well, it could be worse. It could be bad, but it was trending in the wrong direction. I'd be like, well, I have my gambling account, whatever. But, at the end of the day, I strayed from the kind of commandments that any responsible gambler has. I have bankroll management systems that just slowly went out the window, got stretched, got walked over, ignored. I used to bring my budget and that was that and do daily. It's like, I'm just going to tap into tomorrow. Gonna, go to the ATM. I have the money. So the fortunate part, is that all of the money that I lost was from my Vegas account. That's the bright side. But, being completely honest on the flip side, that account is down to $1,400 now. And, I've never really had to put more money into that. I do like 20 a paycheck automatically, but, it's never been coming out of a budget. So, I realized quite frankly with like the absolute bender that I was on at the El Cortez, where I took out $400 from a sketchy 7-Eleven ATM downtown, which truly looking back, I was like, man, like people are probably doing drug deals in this parking lot. And I'm like, in a way, I'm like, going to this ATM to save $5 so I can get my fix on the slot machines. I'm not much different. It's amazing how you value things differently. I will walk half a mile through a sketchy part of town to save $5 on an ATM fee, but then I will put a 20 in a slot machine, try and get a pig to pop below that and lose another 100, no problem. It's wild how that goes. But it was just a full on bender. I was not thinking straight. Afterwards was just kind of like, whoa. And that was, I was walking back. I finally just kind of quit. I had 160 left of like at that point, 600 that I had taken out in addition to the 900 that was the original bankroll for the trip. So I was firmly in my first 4-figure loss ever. And, I know for some people, 4 figures is a bet on the table. But for me, that's a paycheck, a after-tax take-home for 2 weeks. So it stung, and it's just like I have only myself to blame. I fell for it. I know better. I'm smart enough to know that slot machines are a losing proposition. I know the odds, and I just got sucked up into it. So when I was walking back to the room, I was just so dejected. I'm like, I'm in too shitty of a mood to go be social or, do anything. I'm just going to go back to the room and sleep. And, I've definitely made jokes about the pamphlets before. And I was like, honestly, like this is a pretty shitty feeling, like a low feeling. So I grabbed it and, it just seemed like a fitting post for the blog because at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's fun. It's entertainment. The second it becomes any more than that, you gotta rein it in. And, had I done that when I was rage betting and losing, I would have saved a lot of losses. But more importantly, I would have had money and time and energy and excitement for like fun things that I wanted to do. Like I'm not sitting here feeling sorry for myself that I blew the money. I'm sitting here feeling sorry for myself that I blew the money in a way that wasn't even enjoyable. And I'd hit a bonus and be like, oh, shit, that was a lame one. Oh, that was not even worth, like those negative gamblers. Like that was my internal dialogue. Like that's the inner monologue I had going. And that's not fun. That's not logical. That's not why you go. And it's like, shit, I could have bought a new guitar with that. I could have upgraded my ski setup. Like, but the gambling is entertainment. I never beat myself up when I'm getting my entertainment value, but I just, for about $800 of that, there was no enjoyment. And, it's just something I've, been thinking about a lot. I've got some really good friends that have helped me kind of process, listened and stuff. And, I just need to kind of recalibrate my gambling, my expectations. I think, I was on an insane heater earlier this year, which is, kind of the worst thing that can happen to you because you just think it's easy and you can do it every time. Like there was a stretch, first two hand pays of my life, 1,200, 2,100. Just, couldn't book a losing trip, and then it switched, and then it couldn't book a winning trip. And, like I described, just kind of the descent into the madness of the blog. That's why I wanted to do it, of just, it's not like I woke up and said, you know what, I'm going to lose $1,300 and go on full tilt. It was a gradual thing. And this was just kind of the culmination of a lot of bad habits that I had developed over this past year, and kind of tolerances that I grew in. And just, it all kind of hit me. And we're going to see, my next trip is for when we were young, end of October. And I'm really optimistic that I'm going to be able to kind of rein it in, recalibrate, and, not recreate this. Because quite frankly, if I do, then that's the last trip. Like there's, for both, like, now that I'm aware of it, I can't close my eyes to it or put my head in the sand. Like I saw on full display what happens when stuff goes wrong. And if I'm not able to stop it before that, gotta get out before I'm actually betting the mortgage or something like that.
Well, as I say, I think it's pretty honorable, and it takes a big person to sort of take that step and realize and take that step back and go, oh shit, this is bad. So many people don't. So I think for you to A, recognize that, B, do it, and C, put yourself out there and share that, hopefully it may help somebody else with the same situation and the same issue, look at it and go, okay, yeah, I'm doing exactly the same thing. I should take that step back. So again, I think it's putting yourself out there is something I don't know if I could do that in the same way. So I really admire that in you, my friend.
I really appreciate that. It's kind of funny because in a weird way, I feel like getting to that point is like the shittiest part, with like the hardest work and like the tough moments. But like I really just kind of, that day off on Monday and just walking around, like of course I was down. I really sat in it. I was stewing, but I really just kind of felt like light and free and liberated afterwards. Like after reaching that tough discovery with the reflection, it really was just kind of a relief. And I kind of felt that posting it too, because, and maybe this is revealing me as a compulsive gambler, or maybe other people can relate. But when I got back to the office the next day, and how was Vegas? And I'm just like, lost money. I don't want to be like, well, I lost my take home salary, like a
Yeah.
2-week salary. I lost that and was paid, so, but like feeling the need to hide it, or the shame, for me is the worst part. So just laying it out there. It's like, okay, if someone's going to be a dick, they're going to be a dick. I'll block them. I'll move on, but not feeling like I had to hide it, and just having it out there, not having people ask questions or, say stuff that's inadvertently going to be upsetting, and just having people know was really kind of liberating for me. And it really, I got this reaction when I posted about drinking as well. Just the Vegas community is really something special. We're not going to give the bad apples any time. I mean, it is some really good people. You are one of my close friends that's, come from this. There's multiple others on Twitter. And it's just, I'm not going to name anyone else just because I know I'll forget people, and I don't want to do that. But because there's so many, it's truly hard to name. And it's just, it's really special. It's a nice break from the toxicity of politics or sports or, the other stuff that pops up on Twitter. And it's, just a curated happy place where we all enjoy it. But, on that note, I did feel a responsibility to be honest. I've never, I don't make money off of it other than, if people send a karma donation, but it's not monetized. I have no desire to do so. I don't want to be a mouthpiece for a casino or, have my ethics compromised. If something's great and I say it's great, it's because I thought so and I mean it. And if it sucks, I'm saying it, that it sucks, And I really value just that kind of freedom and authenticity. And I think when, like you said, when you're scrolling through and you see someone's trips, or if you're watching like the slot YouTubers, you see win after win after win, and there's no context. I mean, I kind of posted a tongue-in-cheek one when I landed, where I was like, here's my 4 big hits. Like, if you looked at this, you'd think I had a hell of a trip. It took $1,500 to get that, and I gave it back, So I just think it's important to see all of it. I think especially with those highly volatile games like Huff and More Puff, Buffalo, the pigs, like all of my vices that I go for, you see the hits and you go, oh, that's due, it's going to come. But the reality is, more often than not, you get your Stampede and it's $8 and you go, that's it, it's not going to run again. You burst the pig and it's like, really? I was in for $100 and I got 10. Like, oh great, the mini. It's when you're following a lot of people and only seeing the wins, it's easy to think that they happen more than they do. And the sad reality is that the losses happen more, which is how the casinos give you all the nice stuff and the fancy lights and stuff. And I hope that anyone following hasn't hit the depths that I did here. I think, most people who gamble quite a bit have experienced, some degree of those feelings, emotions and stuff. And I think and hope that most people are able to kind of regulate and moderate it so that it doesn't get to that level. But it's kind of, like a hangover where you go too hard and you're like, ooh, can't do that again. But just, being honest with the losses is, I think, my biggest complaint when you look at the kind of gambling community, because there's just never that transparency, and it's easy to forget the odds are stacked against you. And, it's fun to follow along. I would love to see a YouTuber just post unedited slot play and, do it, but you don't tend to see that, or at least not as visibly. So,
no,
it's a small thing. I know I don't have as much of a following. I don't pretend to, purport to, or aim to have that, but I felt like, if me laying this out there and just showing how easily it can go bad and how it often does go was helpful to someone, or at the very least entertaining, then it was worth it.
Sergio, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on and have the conversation. We need to do this more often. Let's make sure the next time we talk, it's not 3 years between chats.
Yes, and hopefully it won't be kind of a downer of like, almost blew it.
Sergio, thank you again, my friend.
Thank you, Jeff. Always a pleasure.
And that wraps up another episode of Jeff Does Vegas. If you've got feedback on this episode of the show, or any other episode for that matter, or you've got suggestions and ideas for topics you'd like me to cover on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to me via Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Jeff Does Vegas. Or drop me an email directly at jeff@jeffdoesvegas.com. In the meantime, thank you so much for checking out the show. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you'll know the moment new episodes are available. And don't forget to visit jeffdoesvegas.com for past episodes and show notes. My name is Jeff, and this has been Jeff Does Vegas, a Walker New Media production.